Hi, I'm Jennetta Billhimer, and I'm here with What's All the Buzz about homeschooling. Today we're going to be talking about homeschooling multiple children. So if you have more than one child, how do you do that? It already seems like, how could you even homeschool one? But I'm here with Kathleen Smith, and she is going to talk today about doing just that. She's actually the mother of 12, and so I think that she knows something about the subject. She's taught all of her children at home, and just to let you know a little bit about Kathleen, she has degrees in music education and music therapy. She and her husband Steve and their family live on a farm, and they have lots of different animals. And she has taught many homeschooling mothers over the years as well, and helping them to find greater joy in homeschooling and satisfaction in a job that can really be challenging. And so she can let you know more about how to make that a little bit smoother. So she's got like over 30 years actually of working with children and parents and education. And she's got a website too. And it's while I'm on the subject, it's wildrosemusic.com. You're going to want to write that down because she has some fantastic things on her website. I really love some essays that she's written on her site, and you can also find her. So look on. Oh, isn't it how do you say that? Neshama?
Neshama.
Neshama. What? And so you
It
click on
means
Neshama, and you can find some great
uh-huh.
articles. What does Neshama mean?
Neshama is the Hebrew word for the soul.
So the
So
soul.
it's about caring for the soul. So it's not just physical, it's not just spiritual, it's combining the two. So you get a whole approach to your life.
I love that because that's really what homeschooling is so much about. It's not just compartmentalized. It's like
Mhm.
it's everything. It's a whole way of learning
Yeah.
with so much wholeness to it. And then you can also find her on Facebook at the ABCs of Health, Wealth, and Happiness, and she's got some great articles and posts on there as well. So. Anyway, welcome, Kathleen. I'm so glad to have you today.
Thank you, Jennetta.
So let's get started right away. Number one question, that I think a lot of parents have, how do I prioritize my day when everything seems of equal importance? I mean, there's so many things that we can be doing in our lives as mothers, as women, as fathers, as men. How do you do that? How do you prioritize, how do you prioritize things? Your homeschool.
Well, basically you have to take some time before you ever start your homeschool, like say during the summertime when you're just thinking about this and wondering what you're going to do. That's the time to really decide what you know is most important. And what I came up with to start my day and to start my school with was that the most important thing for me was, as a homeschool mom, the most important job I had for my children wasn't to teach them, but to help them to love learning. So if I was helping them to love learning, then I was succeeding. And putting it in that little capsule and saying, this is my job. It's not my job to give them every little morsel of education. It's not my job to spoon feed every little lesson and every little book and every little thing that they have to learn. That's not my job. My job is to help them to love to learn. And if you do that for a child, they will learn. They will grab the knowledge, they will eat it, they will devour it, they will want it. if you just know that your job is to help them to love to do that. And if they love it, they'll do it, even without you. But if you get in the way, if you make it difficult, if you make it painful, if you make them hate it, then they'll run from it. And that's my job. So in order to prioritize what I do in the day, I had to stop and, again, kind of make a list of what I needed to get done in the day. So if I decided that I needed to get my checkbook balanced or pay some bills, and I also had to have school, and I also had to get to the grocery store, and I also had to make 3 good meals, and I also had to maybe bring my husband his lunch. Those are all the priorities, and they're all very important. So what I would do was I would start with me, because basically if these are my priorities and I've got all this stuff to do, I've got to feel good enough to do it. So I focus first of all on me. Now that seems a little counterintuitive. It seems like, I'm in a service position and I want to just serve everybody until I die, but that's not how it works. You really have to wake up in the morning feeling good. And the only way I could do that was to first and foremost let go of the clock. When I first started doing homeschool, the thing that drove me crazy and that was hounding me till I wanted to die was the clock. Because I felt like if 9 o'clock arrived and I hadn't gotten them their breakfast and they hadn't started school and we didn't have lessons done and I wasn't even dressed and they weren't dressed, if I looked at the clock and I said, I'm failing, then it would knock me down, and the next thing I know, it would be noon and nothing would still be done, and I would be feeling miserable, and so it was a battle every time I had to stare at that clock. So I decided one day, I said, I'm going to ignore you, clock. I'm just going to pretend that I have a whole day, and the whole day is mine, and I will do with it what I want. I don't care what your clock says. 9 o'clock doesn't mean it has to be breakfast time. Noon doesn't mean it has to be lunchtime. And it doesn't mean I have to get lessons done at any certain time. So when I let go of the clock, then I could say, okay, right now, I feel like I need a little more sleep. So I would try to get a little more sleep. And then I would wake up and go, you know what? I need to get showered. So I would take my shower and I wouldn't look at the clock and say, well, gosh, it's already 10 o'clock. What am I doing? And then try to run and, sort of throw things together. I took it one thing at a time and did it the best. So I took a shower and I felt good. Then I got down and I got myself some breakfast. And then I started to try feed everybody else and get them dressed. And when I was feeling good, because I've had enough sleep and I've fed myself and I'm ready to go and I'm not worried about the clock, then I can start encouraging the others. And the more I did this, letting go of the clock and just starting where I was at and feeling good myself, then I was able to start ticking off all the little things that I needed to do in the day. Now, as far as, getting all my stuff done while I was trying to help them get their stuff done, what I found is I could do them at the same time. So if I've started my opening exercises, maybe take an hour, maybe a half an hour, and just do some singing and stories and stuff that we do together.
And if you're not worried about the clock, you can just keep going as long as you need to.
Right.
You don't have to just stop.
Right.
If you have a good lesson that you're all learning together on, right?
Just keep going until it feels like it's time. So the clock was now inside me. It's what I feel like it's time for. And then I would say, okay, now it's time to do lessons. So I would put them to work on their lessons, and then I would make sure they knew that it was their job to do the lessons, but I'm going to be right here because I'm going to be doing my lessons. So I would pull out my checkbook and I would be doing mine while they're doing theirs. And they'd look at me and go, hey, mom has homework too. And they thought that was so funny, but it was the best thing when I started pulling my work into their workspace, because then they could see that this is why you learn this. So you can
And
do
here
this.
you are showing them how you do it. This is what you do
Yeah,
throughout your
yeah.
life. You're going to be lifelong learners.
Right,
Not till
right.
just after you finish, high school and you're done with it and you don't have to do any of this anymore. You're going to do
Right.
this forever. This is what mom does.
Right. And I could do it with joy, sitting there watching
Mhm.
them and
With
say,
joy.
yes, see what I'm doing? This is great. This is why we learned this. And now you're learning it and I'm going to help you. And then they'd look over my shoulder, see what I'm doing. And I would help them. They would help me. And I felt better about doing my work when they were doing theirs, because they would encourage me and I would encourage them. And then it becomes a fun event. And then when we're all done doing our little paperwork, schoolwork, which is normally what people see as schoolwork, is the paperwork. But to me, that was just the preliminary. That's the eating your peas first type of thing. So we do that first in the day. We just eat all those peas, and then we get down to the real business of learning, which is the books. So very often after that, then, if I got a lot of my stuff done, then maybe I had to go to town and get some shopping done. But while I was doing that, we would also take a trip to the library. Every time we went to town, we'd go to the library. And I know so many parents who limit how many books their kids can only get this many because we don't want to lose them. But you know what? The best thing happened to me when I let go of those limitations on the library. It was so fun to just go and get a stack of books, the max. We would max out our library cards and get the most books we could. And when we came home with these huge stacks of books, the kids' eyes were just wide and they're like, I can't wait to get to my stack of books. And they would sit on the couch for hours just pulling off their stack of books that they'd gotten. And they would get them all. And sometimes we'd lose one. Sometimes we'd get late fees. But that late fee was the price I paid for the joy of learning. So that's where the joy of learning comes, was between our relationship with the library. The paperwork stuff, that's just eating your peas so you can get to the dessert. And the
Words of
dessert is
wisdom,
about
it sounds like.
well, it just made it so much more fun for me and for them.
Yeah.
And
And then when they're on the
that's
couch, then you can just be there. Then you have time to work the baby and
that's right.
for
That's
the
right.
babies.
You are so right. See, that freed up my afternoon when I could bring them home and they just had this huge stack of fun stuff. Who wants to watch a movie when you have all these wonderful stories just waiting for you to come into them? It's different when you read a book. So I really just focused on helping them to love that process of getting inside of a book and making that learning happen. And before I knew it, and this was the bonus, this is where homeschooling really pays off. The bonus was that when they started to go to the library after a few dozen times, they started to get books that were way above their heads. And
Because they don't just have to be for fourth grade level.
that's right, right. And they would get a book on how to do something and take it home and in secret go in their bed and figure out how to do it. And the next thing I know, they're out behind the house somewhere doing this amazing thing that they discovered how to do in a book. Then it becomes discovery. And there's nothing more joyful in learning than discovery. And when you give your kids that opportunity, then you allow them to learn instead of making them learn. So we spend a short amount of time in the day where I said, you've got to learn to read, you've got to learn to write, and you've got to learn to add numbers. And if you'll do that for me, then I will let you have most of the rest of your day to do the other learning that you just crave. Kids crave learning. If
Well, you
you
do,
facilitate
don't you, when it's what you want to learn about.
That's right. That's right.
And so
it
how
works.
much time? Yes.
How much time?
So yes, how much time would you say that you spend, doing school?
Well, generally, my opening exercises, which was our group learning, I would spend anywhere from an hour to maybe even 2, depending on, what we did. But I tried to give them a well-rounded basis in that. So we would say the Pledge of Allegiance. We would sing hymns. They learned almost every hymn in our hymn book this way, because we'd sing a new hymn every day. And I'm a musician, so that was kind of my thing. So they learned.
We do that too. I love it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
some of my kids love the more sunshiny songs and some don't as much. So we can only sing the chorus at the beginning and at the end. Yes. Right. I'm like, okay, we just compromise here, because I love the sunshiny songs, sorry. The marching songs.
And you can do it however you want and when. Yeah, it's great.
Right,
so
because you're in charge. You're in charge.
And when they were little, I just taught them by rote. And rote, is where you say it, they say it. You say it, they say it. You say it, they say it. And kids will learn so fast that way if you let them memorize it and repeat it. So we would do our songs, we would do our pledge, and then we would do a scripture, generally just a chapter, and we would read it. And then if I had insights about it, I would talk about it. Now, in our family, we generally had our scripture study at night with my husband and our whole family. But in school, when we would read a scripture, then I could expound. I could teach them. I could explain things. Whereas at night with my husband, he's like, it's time for bed, he's wanting to get done. Right. But during the day, in the morning, it was like, we just had all day. And the kids would have questions, and we would look things up, and they would get curious, and they'd say, I didn't know that, and it was so fun.
You can turn right to a scripture story of Daniel in the lion's den, or, any other Bible story. And I used to have a little list, I know, and I would, what was a long list actually of all these scripture stories. So I could just turn right to that one, and then we could read that right from the Bible where it talks about it. And we had such wonderful discussions. That's where we came up with the 3 older kids, and I came up with our 4th daughter's middle name, and she's named after one of the midwives in the that saved the Israelite babies, that were saving Israelite babies at the time of Moses. And when we just decided that together one homeschool day, we were all just sitting on my bed reading, and
And what was her name?
It's Shifra, so it's her middle name.
That is sweet. I love that. Yeah.
She's such a wonderful woman. I hope that she takes that with her in her life, and and wants to. And she actually is very much like that as well. Sometimes I don't know if babies maybe choose their own names. I'm like, hey, I love this name, because she is all about that, and so. About helping people and saving people, and she's there for the underdog, and
That's great. That's great.
Anyway, I digress. But
okay, so we've got our opening exercise where we do a song and then we do a scripture, and that can be the most fun and spiritual and uplifting time where you connect with your kids about what you love best and what's most important to you.
Yeah, from whatever your book is.
Yeah, to me, there's no more high priority than that. If you and your children can connect with something that is of the greatest value to you, then you have succeeded. So, and I felt that every day that I would discuss scriptures with my children and sing songs, I felt successful. And I didn't need any more than that. So I would do a lot more, but I didn't need more than that. So after that, then we would generally close with another song and prayer, and then I would pull out one of my favorite books that I'd read as an adult or a youth, and I would read maybe a chapter, maybe 2. And we read probably, 100 books that way. Just me reading them out loud to them. Now, I always made it a priority to read to my children, but when you get many children, it can be a difficult thing to sit down and read a story. And that's why we went to the library and got those big stacks, because then they would read to each other, they would read to themselves. But during school, I always took the time to read a book. So it's a recreational book. You know, we're not just here to study scriptures and the gospel, but also to learn other things. And it became such a fun thing to go through this journey together of these books. So we read all the Little House books and a lot of books like that. And what a joy to you know, pass through those stories together. It's sort of like a journey together.
I think
And
it's one of the
that,
best things we do in our homeschool is just
yeah,
sitting and reading together. I love that.
yeah, that's so much joy there.
And the
So,
classics can really it's something that they can look back on in their life
uh-huh,
and can really solidify what you've been teaching them, and
right,
therefore they can remember, you know, I don't want to do that because I read about, you know,
right.
Ralph Moody when he did that or whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
helps them think about life a bit. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. It's so good, so important. And that's another thing, that when I would do that, I just felt so much goodness about what I was doing, that I just felt joy and happiness. And I didn't need any more than that from my homeschool. I didn't
Yeah.
need them to be passing tests or prove to me that they were smart enough. I just needed to know that I was making a difference in their life. And those two things did that for me.
And then if you're helping them with to just love learning, they're going to be
Yeah,
lifelong learners. They're going to learn
that's
about
right.
the dolphins if
That's
that's what
right.
they need to
And
learn
then you
about.
just let them fly. That's how it works.
And I think in public
Anyway,
school, you're trying to cover all the bases and make sure that
right,
everybody
right.
knows about everything,
And you're trying
because
to feed
even
it
though
to
you
them.
can't, they
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. They're trying to make you learn it. They're trying to say you have to learn about this and this and this, but they
Yes.
don't do it in this same way. And this way I found to be very, very effective.
And you learn it
Okay,
for
so
the test
after,
in public school, but then
right, right.
but then you know you forget it. And I just
Uh-huh.
oh, and it's so much fun to do social studies. When I was a child, I thought social studies was so boring because I had my
Uh-huh.
book, you know, this really boring book with boring pictures, and then I had to do the questions at the end of the chapter. And
Right.
oh, there's just, and now we just do so much. So many of the
Uh-huh.
things cover social studies and, well, all
Right.
the different kinds of things.
Right.
But while you're sitting there reading with them and
Uh-huh.
pulling out, you know, this bit of information, you're just learning together.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Right. Yeah, and we're always looking up things on the internet. So, you know, my husband would always come home and say, well, did you know this? And did you know this? And he would point them to websites and articles, and it was great. So anyway, after we would do a book, then generally we would, I would have them stand up and we would just do some basic opening, stretching, moving exercises. Not really a workout, but to just sort of get the blood going, do a little stretching, do a little, you know, waking up, a little bit of yoga positions, you know, things to, you know, like standing on your head or doing a little somersault, you know. We would do that for maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then we started something that was really, really a fun thing, and I recommend this to children, especially people with small children, is that after we would do these stretching exercises, we would all sit in a circle and have like a meditation time. But
Mhm.
usually I would do like a guided meditation. So I would say, okay, now I want everybody to just think about going to a place that to you seems like the best place in the world. In your mind, close your eyes, and we're all just going to go there. And we would do that for about 5 minutes, everybody quiet, just going to that place. And then when we were done, then I would say, okay, if anybody wants to share where they went, and then we would just go around the circle and everybody would share what they did in their minds. And it was the funnest thing. It was so surprising sometimes what they came up with. You know, one person would go to the mountains, one person would go to the beach, and one person would have this imaginary planet in another universe. It
Well, and
was just,
even if you just did that, I mean, what an
uh-huh,
amazing thing for people to start out their day
yes.
with meditation,
Yeah,
and that's something that they'll remember
visioning
and take
is
with
so
them.
important. People have to be able to envision their future, and that's what I was helping them to do, was to envision their highest aim. And it
Hmm.
was so good. You could just watch their little souls open up, and they're like, "Oh, I can imagine anything I want." you know? And
Uh-huh.
that's powerful for a kid to be able to realize that they have that inside them, that they can go anywhere if they just close their eyes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
books and imagination,
I
powerful.
love, oh, sorry, what was that? I
Books
interrupted
and
you there.
imagination, it's so powerful to open that up.
Yes. And wow, what a wonderful gift for to have for the rest of your life also. And then the stretching exercises that you did. I know that yeah, some families have done brain gym and we've done that, and it just really gets your mind ready for
Uh-huh.
to start learning, and
Yeah,
where
yeah.
if you're just sitting for a long time, sometimes that it's just hard to, but getting everything ready to go in your mind, getting ready to, yeah, go forward. So I love
Yeah.
that.
So after we did that, then we would all gather around the table or with our books, and I would just make sure that everybody had their assignments. And here I want to recommend a really good newsletter website that I found, and he just prints like a weekly or monthly newsletter, and in it he sends, it's called freeprintable.net, and he sends out free printable everything. Everything that's free and printable, he will send you a link to, and he, every week or every month, he has a whole bunch of new ones and some old ones, but he had a ton of worksheets on there for school, and they were always free and they were always easy, and I just loved it because it was like, oh, got more, got more, got more, he was always coming up
Uh-huh.
with more. And so I love that he would do that legwork for me to provide all these worksheets, and whether it's for your school or for your business or for your home or for just cards or Christmas, and he does holidays. It was amazing. Color pages, just all kinds of things, all free printable, and it would just
That's
show up in my
amazing.
inbox.
That
So
sounds
I recommend
amazing.
it. And you can
Just print off some
subscribe
things,
to the
have things ready to
newsletter.
go.
Right.
Yeah,
So
here's
I
your
have
worksheet
that
for the day.
you in a link but if you just go to freeprintable.net, it's his website, and then you can sign up for his newsletter, and I've loved it. And he's so good, he's like, well, if you don't want this, I'll stop sending it, but
Uh-huh. Oh, that sounds
anyway,
fantastic.
yeah, it's been really good. And he kind of talks to you during the newsletter, and tells you how he's doing, asks how you're doing, and it was kind of, seems very personal and not just sort of industrial. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, it's a fun little newsletter, and I've gotten so many good printable things off of it. And
Well,
so
and do you
yeah.
have other resources that you really love that you can get kids, you know, doing while you're and getting their things accomplished that way, and as far
Yeah.
as math and things like that,
Uh-huh.
that while you're taking care of the littles.
Yeah, well, and sometimes I would let them help each other,
Hmm.
and I say let them because I didn't say, well, you have to do this.
Right,
Usually
because
it was
then
just
that
somebody
gets
would
old
see that
for
and
them
help. Yeah.
fast. I'll
But
bet
yeah,
you.
there is one really good website that I loved, and the kids just took off with it, and they loved the reward system that was there, and it's Khan Academy, and I don't know if you've heard of it,
Hmm.
but
My
Khan
kids like to do
Academy.
math on con.
Yeah, Khan Academy is
Yeah.
amazing, and I love the reward system on it, and they liked working toward it, and they would compete with each other in it. So that's another thing with more than one. If they're both on it and they each have a thing, then they can compete and see where each other is at, and those are great. Anytime you can give them more motivation for that. So
Mhm.
also before we, I know we're not quite done yet, but I printed up a list of the notes from today. So I gave you those questions, but we're not actually going to talk about all the questions, but I answered all the questions in these notes, and I put it on my website under Neshama, and it's called More Than One is Twice the Fun. So that's the
Okay.
article you want to look at, is More Than One is Twice the Fun. And
So
I
go
can
into the
send you a link.
website, go to
Yeah,
Neshama, and then it's there.
yeah, yeah. So that
It's more than one. Is that
more than one is
more
twice
than
the
one?
fun. Anyway, So that it's got all of the things that I wanted to say in this interview, even if I didn't get the chance to say it. So I got a lot of different things that I talk about in there. So
Well, I know that one of the questions was the about the accountability.
Mm.
And some of my kids say, I don't want to mark the chart, but but I tell them it's important to return and report. And yeah, it's a principle. And so how do you do that in your homeschool?
Well,
because it's so important.
I considered that the most important part of my accountability for them was watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I watched them do it, and if they showed it to me, and like you said, marking the chart, that's basically bringing it to you so you can see it. Because a child's most important reward for every single thing they do in their life is that you saw it. That is their best reward. And it took me a long time to learn this, that the only thing my children needed from me wasn't money. It wasn't even so much my time or my food or my energy or anything I could give them, but it was just me looking at them saying, you did that. When you can do that and they can bring it to you and you can do that, that's accountability. It's like you said, return a report. It's going back and saying, you asked me to do this, I did it. Then you see it and you say, wow, awesome. They have now been paid. And as they grow up, they'll eventually learn to do that for themselves. They'll say, wow, look what I did, or they'll show it to their spouse or to their co-workers or their siblings. But that's what they're looking for, is that acknowledgement. And that's, I like how we've seen in the self-reliance program, how they do action partners.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of shifted our family to be more like an action partner system, where we each share our goals. And that's another thing that I would do in a meditation, is we would share our goals. And as we share our goals, then we can be action partners for each other and help each other to accomplish them and root each other on and say, good job, and if you can teach
having that accountability.
If you can teach your siblings to do it to each other, to be action partners for each other, then you really build unity in your family. And when you're talking about homeschooling more than one, that's such an important thing to have, where everybody is rooting for each other in whatever it is important for them. And when we started having family meetings where we shared our goals and we wrote down our goals and we talked about our goals, then everybody started to say, wow, that's what he wants? Well, that's way cool. And they would, start that interaction about what their aspirations were. And then it became really exciting to see them sort of egg each other on. Instead of fighting, they were like pushing each other to do better, which is like, yay.
Yeah, and so let's talk for a minute about bickering. So that's one thing that can help to stop the bickering, but what are some other ways to not have that contention in your home while you're, and I think a lot of parents wonder, how would I do that? Because my kids, maybe they're fighting all the time.
Right.
How do you create that unity?
Rule number one is don't jump into an argument by being one more of the arguers. That's a big, big no-no. I mean, just refrain from being part of the argument.
You lose power that way, don't you?
Yeah.
You lose a lot of power where when we talked before in our other video, we were talking about being the judge. And you really can't be the judge if you're just one of everybody else who's bickering.
Yeah, you can't be the judge and the plaintiff. Doesn't work. So it's very important that you stay aloof. of the argument, and you don't jump in and say, well, you said, well, you did, like that.
Yeah.
So,
So
and
watch the
don't
other
do the
video, everyone, about
yes,
that.
no, yes, no, yes, no, that it's so easy to get in with a little child, So
Yeah.
that's the first thing, is to just not get in the argument. And the second thing is to sometimes just watch it. Just watch. Just go there and watch them argue, and feel it. And let yourself feel what they're doing. And let them watch you feel it. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it's a very powerful tool that you can use. Now, you obviously aren't going to let them get to the point where they start, violently hurting each other. But if you're standing there and you're not interfering, but you are just watching.
They know you're listening.
Yeah, but you're not interfering. You're just watching and you're waiting. Then they will want to rise to the level where they can get your reward, which is your approval.
Mm-hmm.
So each of them is going to want to do the thing that they think is the best thing. Because if they do that, they know that you're going to say, oh, I'm so proud of you, you did that. Or the other one might say, I've been kicked in the shins here, and I feel like I want to get back at this person, but because mom is standing right here, I'm going to just take it on the chin and okay.
Do my best.
And then you
I'm a
can
good
see
guy.
that. You can watch them do that. And if you watch them do it, you watch them make those sacrifices and make those changes, then when they're done and you haven't interfered and you let them resolve this on their own, more or less, then individually you can take them aside privately and say, I'm so proud of you that you didn't fly off the handle, you didn't hit him, you didn't yell back, you just did you did the right thing. And then they'll cry and they'll say, it was hard and I didn't want to. And you're like, I know, but you did so good and I'm proud of you. And then you can go to the other one and say, I can see what you did. So when you do that, what you're doing is you're catching them doing good instead of trying to catch them doing bad. So arguing, you're going to say, well, that's a bad thing. But if you're looking for how they are going to solve it and do the right thing, and just watch their little souls change as you watch them, you will see them rise to a new level of understanding and practice as you just watch them and don't interfere. Just watch. So that's a tactic that you can try, a technique. And sometimes letting them work these things out is better than you interfering. But also,
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, so I think a lot of mothers are wondering, and fathers, how can I be everywhere at once? I've got high school age kids, maybe, and I've got middle school, and then I've got little ones, and then there's the new baby. How do I do that?
Well, you have to hire some help. And you do that with each of your children who is old enough to understand how to do this. You basically take aside. I started with the one who already had it as like this was her. She already was doing it. I just took her aside and said, I want you to do this for me. So I took the one little girl who was the most likely, and in a band room, I would say that's your flute player. She's the one who's always wants to do the best, and she's always sitting up straight, and she's always happy, and she's always on time. That's the one you want to go to. You go to her and you say, I want you to help me. I want you to help me by being where I cannot be. So if you're with your siblings and you see them doing something that to you looks dangerous or that maybe they shouldn't be doing, will you please just come and tell me? Now, very, very important is that these other siblings are not going to get in trouble for this. Because if they're going to get in trouble, then they will just hate that person for telling on them. But if you're just going to know what they're doing and then be able to deal with it in the kindest and best way by teaching, not by punishing. So we talked about not punishing. So you just get them to inform on you, to you. So if you've got
Just
all of your children who are informers, then you can be lots of places where you wouldn't normally be. And you can be privy to things that are happening. And you may not do anything about it, but at least now you know. And that knowing gives you the peace of mind to say, you know, I know that they're doing that now, and I know what they're doing. So now I know, and now I'm not just guessing, well, maybe they're letting off a bomb or something, you know.
Well, if you're nursing your baby.
Right, right. So, and I had my little informers, and they were so good to just tell me, and then I knew, and then I could be at peace, even when I couldn't be everywhere. Because obviously you can't, but you can know a lot more if you hire your informers and then don't punish the ones who have been informed on.
And I think, yeah, I think that's kind of a more, it kind of gives a little bit more power to the older kids who sometimes feel like they need to tell you that something is not going well, that you let them know, I do want to know, and
I'm not going to punish them. Yeah, you'll hear them. And that's the other thing. If they tell you something, believe them. Even if you think they're lying, you believe them. Just believe them.
Trust them.
Yeah. And if you find later that maybe they weren't telling the truth, well, then you maybe teach them to apologize for that. But never punish them for lying. And never make a big deal of it. And then when they've apologized, because you say, well, you know, that wasn't true. And then you just say, and you apologize for that. And if they apologize for it and you don't make a big deal of it, they will not want to do it again. But even if they do, if you just get them to apologize and promise never to do it again, they will try to avoid that situation because it's just sort of icky and embarrassing. But if you make it a punishment and you don't believe them, then they'll want to lie to try to make up for it. And it will just produce more lying. Because they naturally want to lie to get out of things that look uncomfortable. That just happens. And if you just don't make a big deal about it and just say, you know, yeah, just apologize for that and promise never to do it again. And then believe them. Believe them when they tell you things and never punish.
In the moment and make a big deal about it. But then because they're learning things when you're teaching them and without pulling them, you know, out and calling them out, you can still teach those lessons at other times about honesty, and they've got consciences.
Yes, they do. So you let their conscience be the thing that is painful instead of you. Because it will. Conscience can be painful. And they will want to come clean.
And preserve your relationship. Not let them get away with anything, you know, and be harmful to themselves or anything, but...
Right. Yeah, but never punish them for it. Always just teach them that you know, it's really hard to trust somebody when they don't tell the truth. Instead of, you lied to me, you know, that will just make them want to lie more, unfortunately. Anyway, my computer is my computer's battery is going down, and I'm not sure. Sometimes the connection doesn't work very well, and so if I cut out, I apologize. But you know, anyway.
Well, are there any words, anything that you would like to finish with that you think would be particularly helpful for parents who are considering homeschooling multiple children, Kathleen?
Oh, well, I think one of the main things that people struggle with is the social interaction and the fear that they won't get enough and that just their siblings won't be enough. And so one thing that I've done and I recommend is allowing them to choose what kind of social interaction they want that's outside your home. Let them get creative with that. If one wants to do this and one wants to do the other, let them. Find a way, make a way for them to do whatever it is they want to do outside the home. And that will empower them to get the kind of social interaction that they need. And let it be comfortable for them, instead of you saying, well, I think you need this so that you can be socially, right. But let them choose that. And that would be probably my best recommendation. And whether it's a drama club or a sports event or whatever it is,
Civil Air Patrol or
just let them get creative. And you may have to give them ideas or look for opportunities or say, this came up, I wonder if you'd be interested in that.
Well, how do you do that when you have 12 children? When you have so many children, how are you, and they all want to do something different?
Yeah,
I mean, some want to do the same things.
I let them.
And then so you're taking them places.
Yeah, I facilitate. That's my job. I'm the facilitator, big time. Because they're the ones guiding their education. And if that's what they want, I bend over backwards to make it happen. And when they see me doing that, they see that I'm making sacrifices for them, then you know what? They're willing to do it for me. And that's the last thing. If you want them to do chores if they're at home, oh
no. It looks like that we've lost Kathleen. But I bet that she will have that information, and I'll ask her to add it, if not, on the rest of her page that she's got there on her website. So it looks like we'll just need to finish up here. I want you to remember her website. Go there. She has some wonderful information there. Again, it's wildrosemusic.com, and then her Facebook page is the ABCs of Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And I've just been thrilled to have Kathleen on again. I was asked to do this video, and I was thinking about who I could have do it, and there were various names that came up, and but I just felt that it should be Kathleen, and you can actually she can mentor you if you get in touch with her as well. But I was just drawn to her, and that she would have information that would help those that would be listening to this video. So I wish you the best, and it's okay to just jump in. You won't ruin your children by trying out homeschooling. And what an adventure, what a wonderful, even if you just did it for a year, 6 months, or for a few years, what a wonderful adventure that your children would look back on when you were all together and we're all doing this. And who knows, you might choose, like we did, to continue homeschooling for years and years, because we love it, and there's definitely pros to homeschooling. And well, I just know our family hasn't looked back. I think we've loved it, and I wish everyone the best, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you as well. And I mentor as well. So this is Jennetta Billhimer, and I've been interviewing Kathleen Smith. I wish you the best. Thank you for joining us.